Naruto, 10 Best Catchphrases in the Franchise, Ranked. Naruto is filled with some truly great characters who have some impressive dialogue, leading to some memorable catchphrases. Oftentimes, the easiest way to endear an audience to a cast of characters is by giving them a slew of iconic and memorable catchphrases. This was a practice employed religiously in the Naruto universe, supplying many of its heroes and even some of its villains with brilliant one-liners to help distinguish themselves in a perpetually growing world. Through identifying the best slogans of the series' characters, we can better appreciate the qualities that have defined them and how significantly their dialogue has shaped the perception of them as individuals. 10. Ino's Billboard Brow. Insult. What was once a beautiful friendship between Sakura and Ino gradually deteriorated into a toxic competition for Sasuke's affection. Their squabble culminated with their fight in the Chunin exam, where they would knock each other unconscious. In order to disparage Sakura and ingratiate herself to her teammate, Ino would often refer to her as Billboard Brow. This was in reference to Haruno's unusually large forehead, a subject that she was sensitive to. Fortunately for her, this insult would be discontinued after Sasuke's departure from the village. 9. Killer Bee's Fool, Ya Fool. Killer Bee was an eccentric Jinchuriki and shinobi of the Cloud Village. Perhaps his most unusual quirk was through his constant rapping and inclination to end sentences with "Fool, ya fool." The 8 Tails would address almost everyone in this way except for the Raikage, though it may sometimes have been used with malice as demonstrated through his battle against Sasuke Uchiha. It was also applied as a term of endearment. Killer Bee's catchphrase was frequently posited during Naruto's training to master Kurama's chakra and become the hero that the allied shinobi forces needed to defeat the rising threat of Kabuto's Edo Tensei army. 8. Sasuke's sometimes endearing, "You're such a loser." During their youth, Sasuke and Naruto were fierce rivals. The former often had an advantage over his hot-headed opponent, citing that the other genin was such a loser whenever he had the upper hand in a situation or was forced to help his comrade out. Ironically, he would use this catchphrase against Naruto less after departing from the village and joining Orochimaru. This was likely because part of his decision to leave was on account of how much the young hero began to surpass him in strength. 7. Rock Lee's Tenacious Training Proclamations. Rock Lee used a catchphrase as the basis for his training exercise. When he was beginning to feel the strain from an activity, he would assure himself that if he could not do it he would do even more of it. In addition to being an excellent ideology for bettering oneself, it also motivated the taijutsu master to do his training properly. Through his grit and determination, he practiced even harder than Naruto himself. 6. Deidara's Sasori, My Man. Greeting reference. Despite Sasori's abrasiveness, Deidara was a congenial and upbeat partner who often treated him with respect. Moreover, he would refer to him as a friend, mentioning him as Sasori, my man, or my man, Sasori, whether to the puppet master directly or the foes who seek his whereabouts. It was a rare display of camaraderie within the Akatsuki and perhaps the only truly endearing relationship within it outside of Pain's bond with Konan. Deidara was deeply dissatisfied with Sasori's replacement after his death, evincing how fondly he felt for him. 5. Rock Lee's declaration to become a splendid shinobi. Rock Lee has a second catchphrase that is better known than his training strategy. He would often state that in spite of having no ninjutsu or genjutsu, he would become a splendid shinobi. This was a sentiment that resonated with Might Guy and encouraged both of them to train hard together. Curiously, it also captured the spirit of Naruto's ambition to become Hokage. Their only defining difference was that Uzumaki ought to be the greatest, whereas Rock Lee would be satisfied with being a viable shinobi at all. 4. Shikamaru's famous, "What a drag," perfectly embodies his attitude. In the original series, Shikamaru was defined through his laziness. Whenever he was asked to do something, he would often state how much of a drag it was. Though it would not prevent him from completing his task, he forfeited the Chunin exams because it became too much work. The Sasuke recovery mission and Asuma's death against Haiden both forced Nara to mature rapidly. As a result, he would eventually retire this catchphrase once he became a more experienced and charismatic shinobi. 3. Nagato's chilling, "This world will know pain." Pain's entire life can be defined through his catchphrase, "This world will know pain." It is a clever one-liner with a double meaning. Not only would they know Nagato as a shinobi, but they would also understand suffering as he did. Ironically, he also intended for them to relate to him more after he unleashed destruction on the 5 nations. In this regard, knowing pain does not only include experiencing his wrath or its disastrous after effects, they would know what he has endured by being subjected to it themselves. 2. Deidara's "Art is an explosion." Battle cry. Like Nagato, Deidara's philosophy can be summarized through his one-liner of, "Art is an explosion." Whenever he is about to launch a massive attack against his enemy or trigger what he suspects will be lethal detonating clay, he is prone to recite this catchphrase. It also explains his motivations to become a villain. Through siding with the Akatsuki and unleashing his jutsu on the world, he guarantees that his handiwork has as large of an audience as possible, even if they might not appreciate him for his unique artistic tastes. 1. Naruto's unforgettable, "Believe it." Throughout the original series and Shippuden, Naruto has always reassured others to believe it, matching his optimistic sentiments with a glowing thumbs up. Most often, this is under the context that he will one day become Hokage. However, it was also used to console Sakura and convince her that he would bring back Sasuke Uchiha. His famous catchphrase is not only the most repeated of the entire series, but is also even well known to those who have never watched the anime before. Its versatility renders it a legendary line that embodies Naruto's ambitions and personality.